All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? How are you doing today? Um, the video I'm bringing you today is covering the 3.2.0 patch notes for Clockwork City. Now, I'm going to, just like all my other videos where I've done these before, I have not read them yet. I just got the link for it, opening it up for the first time, so we're going to go through them as everything relates to PvP. If I miss anything in this video, guys, like if I accidentally scroll over something, please comment in the section below so we can talk about it there. But yeah, I'm not going to cover the PvE stuff. I'm going to do, as it pertains to PvP. So that's more what I enjoy, what I really care about. So let's dive into it. For players that own Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind, we've added a new battleground game mode, Crazy King, where your team must seize a capture point location that jumps randomly around the map. Cool. My only problem with Battlegrounds right now, I haven't been in there in a while, is I don't like a few of the game modes, and I really wish that they would allow you to choose what game mode you want. Capture the flag is too fast. Like the maps are too close, or the action's too fast paced. People with coward set and shield ulti, it's kind of silly, in my opinion. Domination, that one is just ridiculous. Like in order to win domination, you literally don't fight anybody. You go around and you capture things. So it's too fast. The minute you stop to fight a group is the minute somebody else takes everything and then you lose. So literally, like in order to win that one, you just run around. I just don't think those two playstyles, they need tweaking in order for them to be fun. Team deathmatch is obviously amazing, but as they increase these game modes, it's less and less likely that the fun ones are going to be there. So I wish you could just queue into Team Deathmatch. Like if you could queue into Team Deathmatch, I would be playing Battlegrounds all the time. But I just am not a fan of the other ones right now. Anyway, let's keep going through. Known issues, table of contents, yada yada yada. Brass Fortress, Delves, don't care about that. The new trial. Okay, we're going to go through this a little bit because it has new weapons, so we'll see what they have. Sothassil, 3 Dunmer Saints. Asylum Sanctorum is a 12-player trial located within Brass Fortress in Clockwork City. Trial includes a normal and challenging veteran version. Okay, there's unique skins, several titles, unique housing. Asylum and Perfect Asylum weapons. Much as the Masters and Maelstrom weapons before, the Asylum and Perfect Asylum weapons alter and improve the effect of one of your weapon's skill and abilities. Perfect Asylum weapons have the same benefit as the Imperfect Asylum weapons, but at a greater magnitude. Perfect Asylum weapons are available only for those intrepid heroes who can conquer the hardest battle available in Asylum Sanctorum, St. Olms and both of his allies fighting alongside one another. Wow. For a full list of the Asylum weapons, please see the new item set section a bit further down. Here we go. Itemization. So this is telling you how you get these weapons. I will go into, I'll read these later, but depending on what the weapons are, depends on how valuable, like how much time I'm going to be spending in this. If these weapons are as good as they might be with what Maelstrom was, this could be almost a must for PvP. New collectibles, new item sets. Alright, there are 12 new item sets available from a variety of sources. 3 item sets available at crafting stations in Clockwork City, 3 item sets available as drops throughout Clockwork City, and 6 item sets available as drops in the new trial Asylum Sanctorium. Below is a list of all the new item sets with values being for a full set of gold quality CP160 gear. Clockwork City, crafted. Innate Axiom. Max Magicka, max stamina, spell and weapon crit. Adds 400 spell and weapon damage to your class abilities. Interesting. 400 weapon and spell damage to your class abilities. Wow. Okay, so in PvP, classes that really use a lot of class abilities for damage would be like Templars. You have Purifying Light, you have Vampire's Bane, you have Jabs, you have Topple, you have Radiant. And then you can use the Aedric Spear ulti if you wanted to increase that as well. Sorks, Curse, Frags, Mage's Wrath, Streak, all those are class abilities, so you can front bar this and then get 400 spell and weapon damage to your class abilities. You can also use Negate. You can use Atro. That would be really good. On a Nightblade, Magicka Nightblade, this would also be very useful because they benefit off of crit. Swallow Soul, Merciless, Execute. Like literally everything you're doing as a Magicka Nightblade, Magicka Templar, Magicka Sorc, you can use this crafted set. Now the max stamina, once again, as you guys know, like you could mix and match this. It might give us enough stamina to where we can use a different food. It's definitely an interesting set. I'll probably be playing around with this a little bit. Stam classes, probably not so much. Like Stam DKs, they don't really use many class abilities. They have their 2 dots, and most people are only running like 1 dot, and then all their weapon abilities are weapon skill lines. Stam Nightblade, maybe. In-cap, surprise attack. You could use the Killer's Blade instead of Reverse Slice. So Nightblades could still utilize this pretty well. Ambush, obviously. So you could front bar this on a Nightblade. Templars, Stamplars, Power of the Light, Jabs. I'm using Rending Slashes, but I could also use Adric Spear, and I could get a buff that way. Very interesting set. There's a few classes that could use it, but like Stam DK is one that won't. So, yeah. Fortified Brass, max health, physical resistance, spell resistance. A lot of physical and spell resistance. I almost feel like this is a waste, to be honest. I mean, you almost get to the cap anyways with, capped resistances and your major buffs. So you're at 29,000. This is going to put you over the cap. I don't see, maybe a medium armor build, maybe, but then you're missing out on damage. I don't know. This seems like a weird set. I probably won't be using it, but I'll look at that later. Mechanical Acuity. Hopefully I'm saying these right. Weapon damage, spell damage, max stamina, max magicka. Awesome 4-piece right there. When you deal damage, you have a 15% chance to gain unerring mechanical vision for 5 seconds, causing your attacks to always be a critical strike. This effect can occur once every 18 seconds. Wow. When you deal damage, you have a 15% chance for 5 seconds. Okay, so it's a 5-second chance to do a bunch of crit damage. This effect can occur every 18 seconds. So the cooldown's kind of weird. So for 13 out of 18 seconds, you're not going to have this. But for that 5-second period, you can really stack in some burst. What I want to know with this set is, can you critically strike shields? So if it's always going to be a critical strike, is this going to apply to wards? Is this going to apply to everybody? Because this is a lot of burst potential in PvP. I'm not saying it's good. The cooldown's kind of affecting my opinion, but you could absolutely time this proc with your ultimate. And so if you know that, you're gonna, for 5 seconds, you're going to critically strike, you can time your leaps, you can time your Dawnbreaker, you can time all this, and then it's just so much burst. That's interesting. It's definitely an interesting set. This is definitely going to be one I'll be testing. I think it's kind of going to suck because it's an 18-second cooldown, but I could be wrong. That 5-second critical strike period with a lot of classes could be really good. So we'll see. Clockwork City dropped. Drop sets now. Mad Tinkerer and Light Armor. Spell crit, spell damage. Okay, when you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to summon a Verminous Fabricant that charges the nearest enemy, dealing 10,000 shock damage to all enemies in its path, knocking them into the air and stunning them for 2 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. So, since it's shock damage, it would make sense to apply it on a Sorc. It's also light armor. 2, 3, and 4 pieces good for damage. Seems like it might be more of a PvE set. I don't know how this is going to apply, but 10,000 shock damage is quite a bit. 10% proc chance is pretty high. With the amount of dots that you could run. I don't know if this is going to be super useful in PvP because most Sorcs, they're not running dots, so it's like the typical combo is Curse, Frags, Mage's Wrath. You know, there's not too many chances to proc this, and so I don't know how useful it's going to be. It depends on how fast it is, like how fast this thing charges and what it does, but could be interesting. Unfathomable Darkness. Weapon crit, physical penetration, weapon damage. Okay, so that's a good 2, 3, and 4 piece. When you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to call a murder of crows around you for 12 seconds. Every 3 seconds, a crow will be sent to peck the closest enemy within 12 meters of you, dealing 4,000 physical damage. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. So this set is a lot better than the other physical sets. When you deal damage, so it's any damage, any dot damage, you have a 10% chance to call a murder of crows. Okay, so it happens for 12 seconds, and then it can occur every 15 seconds, so it's roughly a 3-second cooldown. Every 3 seconds, does 4,000 physical damage. So I could see this being useful on, like, on a Stamp Sork. Physical damage can proc Implosion, and so it's like an AoE thing. It's almost like Overwhelming Surge for Magicka Sorks. So if you run like a dot build, like Hurricane with Maelstrom Weapon, for instance, you know, you have a couple dots, Poison Injection, all this chance to deal damage, you have a chance to proc this, and then it does physical damage, it's another chance to proc Implosion. I'm not saying it's going to be good, maybe you can dodge the crows, you know, maybe the proc chance is too low, but I would look at this on like Stamplar, Stamp Sork. Physical damages works very well with Stamp Sork, so I'll probably be looking at that for that class. Livewire, heavy. Healing taken, max health, healing taken. Okay, so tanky set. When you take damage, you have a 25% chance to overload your circuits, applying concussion to enemies within 8 meters of you, and healing for 1,000 health for each enemy hit. This effect can... Wow. That's an interesting set. That's interesting. I wish I had... I wish I could go on to the PTS and do this. ZeniMax, please allow Xbox players to have a PTS, because this would be amazing. I don't know. That's interesting. It's definitely interesting. All right, ready? Here comes the good stuff, Asylum weapons. Asylum Sanctorium, Asylum weapons. The perfected version drops in veteran difficulty, while the normal version drops in normal difficulty. The two cannot be mixed together to complete a full set. For dual wield and one-handed shield, the only difference between the two are numerical values. Okay, so Chaotic Whirlwind, perfected. When you deal damage with Steel Tornado, Whirlwind, you add 10 seconds to your active Twin Slashes, Lacerate, and Blade Cloak over time effects. This effect can occur once per cast of those abilities. Okay, so this seems like... So this helps with sustain. It seems more like for PvE, but you could maybe use this in PvP as like an AoE ability. So when you deal damage with Whirlwind, so Steel Tornado, your Twin Slashes, so Rending Slashes, whatever, has a 10-second increased duration. Your Lacerate, which is your ultimate Rend, and Blade Cloak is also increased. So increased duration, which also means that, you know, it's cheaper, it's easier to sustain. What's interesting with this is, could you just apply your dots and then every 10 seconds you Steel Tornado and then it adds it? So let's say you have 2 seconds left on your Twin Slashes and Lacerate, can you just Steel Tornado again? Because if you can Steel Tornado again after you apply to rend somebody, you could just constantly have rend on them. And so you're being healed and you're applying pressure. Hopefully this isn't... Hopefully this is not one of those things where you can just constantly refresh the duration, because refreshing the duration on that ultimate, even in PvP, would make a lot of people go to Steel Tornado just for that reason. It's just such a strong heal, and it's so much damage, and it'd be so easy to just reapply it. Interesting. Chaotic Whirlwind, when you deal damage with Whirlwind. Okay, so you have the Perfected, that's going to do more damage. It's increased duration, so it's 10 seconds instead of 8 seconds. So those are probably the one-handed weapons. Concentrated Force. Force shock always. Oh my god. Force shock always applies the burning, concussion, and chilled status effects. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds per enemy. So this is the new Maelstrom, or the new Destro staff. So if you use Crushing Shock or you use Force Pulse, you will always apply these statuses. Chilled is minor maim, concussion, and burning. That seems like a lot. This seems like it could very well be the new PvP weapon to have. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's crazy. Okay, defensive position. When you reflect or absorb a spell projectile with a defensive posture, you restore 2,000 magicka. If defensive posture expires without reflecting or absorbing a spell projectile, you restore 5,000 magicka instead. Okay. So that's the shield. That one's interesting because defensive posture costs stamina and then you restore magicka. It's interesting. I don't know how useful this is going to be, but it's definitely interesting. Discipline slash. When you deal damage with reverse slash. Holy shit. Sorry. I'm sorry. When you deal damage with reverse slash, you generate up to 15 ultimate based on how much execute bonus damage is dealt. Wow. So this is literally good on everybody, guys. Like anybody that uses reverse slice, this is good for everybody, especially DKs. So if you're a 2H DK and you're using execute and you leap somebody, you can then execute and then you can generate 15 more ultimate, which is going to increase your sustain on low health targets. This is an awesome weapon. Obviously it'd be good for Nightblades too. You do an execute and you generate 15 ultimate, which is a big chunk of in-cap, so you can do in-cap again. This is going to be a lot of pressure. This is a lot of pressure. Piercing spray. This is the bow. When you deal damage with arrow spray, okay, you cause enemies hit to take 50% more damage from the direct damage portion of your next snipe, scatter shot, or poison. Okay, so direct damage. Okay. So this looks interesting. I'm not saying it's bad. This is going to be harder to use in PvP, in my opinion, than some of these other weapons. When you deal damage with arrow spray, so arrow spray is acid spray, or it's the other one that snares. The one that snares is probably how you would use this. You cause enemies hit to take 50% more damage from the direct damage portion of your next snipe. So with a snipe build, you could hit, you could snare them in place to get your next snipe off. Yeah, so you could do arrow spray, snipe, and then poison arrow, and then that's a lot of direct damage. They're snared in place. 50% more damage on snipe is just kind of dumb, to be honest. I guess that's how I would use it. If I was to use this bow, that's the way I would incorporate it. The only problem, arrow spray's range is a little bit closer, so you will be in range of people being able to counter this. So this isn't going to be, I don't think this is going to be as broken as some people think. I mean, it's going to be bad. I mean, this is going to hit really hard if people use this correctly, but you're using 3 abilities, bow abilities on your bar in order to maximize this, and you have to be in range in order to use arrow spray in order to proc this bow skill. So a little bit tougher to use, but 50% more damage on snipe is just going to make that really silly. So piercing spray, okay, that's the unmorph one. Timeless blessing. So this is the resto staff. When you cast blessing of protection, the cost of your next grand healing, regeneration, or steadfast ward used within 5 seconds is reduced by 50%. We don't need increased healing. Allowing people to sustain a little bit better is just for healing is just kind of silly. Hopefully this is, I mean, obviously they have to do a resto staff, so it makes sense that you're going to buff the resto staff, but healing is really strong. They need to readjust healing, in my opinion, on a base level again. That's really interesting, though. Really interesting. So these weapons they look good. It depends on how this one procs. The 2H, the one-handed weapons proc. The Destro staff looks really good. The 2H looks really good. The bows. There's nothing in here that looks bad, like really bad, where you wouldn't use it. So they definitely have their place. You could definitely make some interesting builds with them. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. New target dummy, whatever. New motifs, whatever. New battleground mode, Crazy King, single capture point. This will be fun, but it's going to be tough to get to it. I like that change though. Horns of the Reach, new motifs. Transmutation, base game update. A new way of altering your equipment is available in this update. Transmutation allows you to permanently change the trait of an item to one of your choosing. The requirements to utilize transmutation is as follows. Transmutation can only be done at a transmute station, which is a new service station found in the Brass Fortress. Home furnishing versions of these stations may also be purchased for rich vouchers from Release, the master writ merchant. Okay, so if you're doing writs and you get writ vouchers, you should probably cash in on those. Transmutation requires transmute crystals, precious resources occasionally received for successfully completing veteran PvE activities such as pledges, trials, and arenas, and several PvP sources such as rewards for the worthy, battleground and match rewards, and AVA, end of campaign rewards. Okay. Transmute crystals are an account-wide capped currency which cannot be banked or traded. Transmutation requires having previously researched the desired trait. Jewelry cannot be transmuted. Okay. Well, that's too bad. That's actually an interesting idea. I didn't even think of that. Along with the ability to change traits, equipment tooltips now have an icon next to the trait that communicates the trait's status. You can research it, ornate, intricate, trait changed. Okay. Inventory views have a column dedicated to displaying this iconography. Okay. The deconstruction screen will now group items based on trait status, such that items that you are more likely to deconstruct are sorted to the top. The sell screen at vendors will list ornate items at the top. Nice. Okay, so if you're in PvP and you're in Imperial City, like instead of scrolling through everything, ornate will be at the top of your list. You'll be able to sell them more quickly. That's nice. With the ability to more easily determine your own trait knowledge and the ability to change traits depending on your trait knowledge, you should now enjoy easier management of your inventory and bank and greater control over the items you wield and wear. This is a great change. Like I've been holding on to some Maelstrom weapons. I've been holding on to quite a few weapons for a while now, and allowing to be able to retrait so I slim down my bank space is very nice. Going to be very useful. It'll be interesting to see how many drops this trait thing is. But in general, like I said before, you know, they're going to constantly be balancing this game. They're going to be tweaking, reworking, rehashing things. And so some traits will bounce to the forefront. And instead of going back into City of Ash and farming your new Burning Spellweave weapons, you can just retrait them at that point. You don't have to spend 50 hours trying to get a precise or infused sword. You know, you can then just switch yours. If you're PvPing, you can switch it to Nirnhund if Nirnhund is the best. You know, this saves on farming. And, you know, I know a lot of people, I've seen it in a couple of the Facebook pages that I'm in where people are upset that new guys now have the ability to be where everybody else is. But at the same time, for us people that have been playing this for a while, it's good for us too. You know, because some of the best gear that we used to have like 6 months ago is not the best gear anymore. So being able to retrait and change a weapon is going to be very valuable. And so that's important. It's going to save time, and it allows people to play the stuff that they want. If you want to go into Battlegrounds, you don't have to farm for 50 hours to get your perfect weapon. You can actually go play Battlegrounds. If you want to do hard mode trials, you don't have to go farm Maelstrom for your Maelstrom weapons to farm trials. You can now just retrait your weapon, and you can jump in there and play like everybody else. You know, you don't have to rely on RNG that may or may not take hundreds of hours to get you where you need to be. This is all useful. In my opinion, this is nothing but a good thing. It allows people to play the game, because sometimes the farming is just such a pain in the ass. So depending on how this drops. Hopefully this isn't like super common, because I don't know. Not that it really matters, I guess, a whole lot, because it's account balance. I just didn't want people like retrading stuff and then selling it, you know, because then it's going to mess with the market for people that are farming gear for stuff. But we still have to farm dungeons in order to get them. So still time spent. New houses, champion point increase. Champion point cap has been raised by a total of 30 points, so 690 CP. Point experience curve has been automatically adjusted with this new cap so that earlier champion points require less experience that can be earned faster. So I'll still be at the cap. Hooray for this update. We've applied one max level template, aptly named Clockwork City. The template will place you in Mournhold in the city center complex. Okay. Oh, this is for... Art and animation, crafting economy, dungeons and group content, housing, alliance war, and PvP. Battleground queues are now divided into 10 to 49 and 50. This means you will only have level 50 players playing against other level 50 players. Great. The level 50 Battleground queue is now CP enabled. What? So they're going to allow CP? Interesting. Capture the relic interactions have changed. There is now a brief animation interaction time in picking up relics in the wild or at home locations. Added 5 new achievements for relating to battlegrounds, audio, combat, and gameplay. Okay. Combat and gameplay. Warden balance. Deceptive Predator. So this is the Falcon Swiftness morph. This morph now increases the duration to 14 seconds in addition to granting minor evasion. This changes helps compensate this morph with additional efficiency. Deceptive Predator's minor evasion only gave 5% dodge chance, while Bird of Prey's minor berserk gives 8% damage. Okay. Nature's Grasp increased the range of this ability and its morphs to 28 meters from 22. Increasing this to match the range of the other heal abilities in the game makes it easier to use and target allies who are spread out. Okay, so they're just applying it to what everybody else has. Bursting Vines. Increase the projectile speed for this morph by 100% and increase the heal from this morph by 10%. As this is a burst heal, we've significantly increased the travel speed to help it fulfill the role of saving a low health ally. It heals for less than Rush Ceremony, but has a cheaper cost. Okay. Winter's Embrace, Frozen Gate. This ability and its morphs now allow you to have up to 3 gates active at a time, up from 1. Its initial spawn visual effects are now invisible to enemies. Are now visible to enemies. Okay. Frozen Gate is meant to as a flavorful analog to Fiery Grip, allowing multiple traps at a time, lets you throw it down on several enemies at the same time, then have them all get pulled to you. Clever players can anticipate where enemies will be and put traps down before they get there. It's interesting. This is still an interesting skill, I just haven't figured out a way to incorporate it. Warden fixes and improvements. Animal Companions, Betty Netch, reduce the intensity of the visual effect from this ability and its morphs. Blue Betty, fix an issue where this morph was not removing a negative effect from you if you had more than one negative effect on you. Good change. I was noticing that as well. Green Balance, Fungal Growth, fix an issue where some of the visual effects of this ability and its morphs were not aligned with the actual location of the healing going. Okay. Winter's Embrace, Frozen Gate, fix an issue where the visual effects of the Frozen Retreat synergy from this ability and its morphs would linger on your character for an extended period of time. Okay. Housing, quests and zones, combat and gameplay. Housing. They didn't affect birds, that's too bad. Combat balance. In this update, we target the least used class abilities and morphs for major improvements, with the goal being to promote build diversity and creating more interesting choices. Okay? General, reduce the duration of the stun applied to you when you are knocked off your mount to 2 seconds from 3 seconds. Cool. And you will now gain crowd control immunity after the stun expires. Even better. While we want there to still be some risk from running around on a mount, we feel the 3-second penalty is too long for our current combat pace. Okay? Dragon Knight, Ardent Flame, Cauterize. Increase the speed of the projectile from this morph by approximately 50%, and the projectile can now target the casting Dragon Knight. Okay, so Cauterize is the other version of Flames of Oblivion. Flames of Oblivion does damage, Cauterize heals. And so it's a unique skill that can heal you, and now this one can heal you with it active. Interesting. That's interesting. I have to test that. Definitely have to test that. Earth and Heart, Petrify. This ability and its morphs are no longer 30-second disorients. Instead, they are 2.5-second stuns that cannot be blocked or dodged, and they can be placed on multiple targets. We also reduce the cost of this ability and its morphs by... Okay, thank you. Reduce cost, perfect. 2.5-second stuns. Developer comments, let's see what they say. Because group gameplay in ESO is focused around large combat situations, having an entire crowd control ability that can be negated by an ally's area of effect attack didn't fit. We've maintained the current advantages of it being a disorient, such as going through block and roll dodge, but now allow attacks against the target. We wanted to further differentiate Petrify from Stonefist because now they both stun enemies. The cost reduction and lack of damage make Petrify more utility focused, while Stonefist deals more damage but requires more magicka. Interesting. Reduced cost is very nice. Much needed thing for a DK. 2.5-second stun, okay. Interesting, definitely interesting. I think that's a good change. Shifting standard. This morph now increases the duration of the standard to 25 seconds. Holy shit. And the standard can be shifted an unlimited amount of times. Shifting the standard no longer refreshes the duration, and the cost of this morph is now the same as the base ability. Wow. This makes shifting standard very valuable because you do 15% more damage in the standard, you take 15% less, so it makes you more tanky. On top of that, the duration is nice. You can move it an unlimited amount of times. If you drop it, people can get out. You can now get to them and then drop it again. This is going to be very good for DKs. These two changes are huge. Some people might disagree, but having the ability to apply Defile plus increased damage plus that resistance for 25 seconds and then constantly shift it, because if you play, the problem with this is against stamina classes, they can get out really easily. This allows you to apply a little bit more pressure with this ultimate, and so you know, this is useless in a lot of situations, but if all of a sudden, you know, it's going to be nasty in some spots. One-on-ones, it's going to be very nasty, I think. The goal of this change is to make shifting standard easier to use. Previously, you had to time the ability perfectly to get the maximum effectiveness out of it. Yep. And shifting the standard early penalized the duration instead of adding utility. Yep. Nightblade, Shadow, Manifestation of Terror, Aspect of Terror morph. This morph now fears up to 6 enemies per trap, up from 2, and the trap no longer triggers if a crowd control immune enemy walks over it. Enemies can now also see an initial projectile marking the trap's location. Okay. Mass Hysteria, this morph no longer fears an additional enemy, but only fears the same amount of enemies as the base ability. Wow. So you can't fear everybody, you can only fear 2 people. We wanted to distinguish the gameplay between Aspect of Terror's morphs. Mass Hysteria grants an instant fear and strong debuff, while Aspect of Terror is more delayed but affects more targets. Because Aspect of Terror is now more powerful against groups, we've made the initial projectile visible to help add counterplay to the ability. Alright, so that's a big change to Mass Hysteria. I think in general that's a pretty good change. Nightblades are not going to be happy, but I think that's a good change, because Mass Hysteria is, I mean, it's the strongest CC in the game, and there's no other CC that affects that many people like that. Like a big AoE CC that goes through block that allows you to dodge, roll, and cloak and get out. You know, you're gonna have to pick and choose your targets a little bit better. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Siphoning, Agony. This ability and its morphs is now an ally-targeted spell that heals them over time and damages you for 50% of the amount healed. Why would you do that? We also renamed this ability Malevolent Offering, Malefic Wreath, Agony Morph. This morph now grants minor mending when it deals damage to you, and has been renamed Healthy Offering. So Nightblades now have minor mending. Prolonged Suffering. This morph now decreases the amount of self-inflicted damage dealt to you to 35% of the amount healed, and has been renamed Shrewd Offering. Weird. This redesign of Agony and its morphs gave us an opportunity to create a new ability more in line with the theme of siphoning. It helps Nightblades fulfill the healing role in a unique way and synergizes with other siphoning abilities that let you steal health like Strife or Siphoning Strikes. You can then transfer that health to your allies. Like Cauterize, this ability can be self-cast since you're taking damage each time it heals. The total return will be less efficient than casting it on an ally instead. Agony, now known as Malevolent Offering, is a powerful heal, and it only damages you if the target is actually healed. But be careful, you can kill your character with this ability. Yep. This is an interesting idea for sap tanks. You know, definitely interesting. Soul Siphon, Soul Shred Morph, Soul Tether. Increase the distance an ally can travel away from you before the heal tether snaps to 25 meters, up from 20. Okay. Sorcerer Dark Magic. Crystal Blast. Increase the splash damage of this morph by approximately 25%. That's a lot. We wanted to make this morph worth the time spent casting, so we're increasing the area of effect damage to make it worth the risk of throwing into a pack of enemies. Rune Prison. This ability and its morphs are no longer 30-second disorients. Instead, they are 2.5-second stun that cannot be blocked or dodged, and they can be placed on multiple targets. Cool. Good skill for Sorks. Definitely. Placed on multiple targets makes it even better. Rune Cage. This morph now deals damage to the enemy if the stun lasts its full duration. Defensive Rune Morph continues to place a buff on you that will stun the next enemy that damages you. Similar to Petrify, we wanted to change this Disorient into a stun while retaining its current functionality to make useful in more situations. Alright, Dawn's Wrath, Eclipse. This ability and its morphs now returns damage whenever the affected enemy casts a direct damage attack. Still grants crowd control immunity when the effect ends and can now be removed by break free. Okay, good. Eclipse can now be placed on an unlimited amount of enemies as a baseline effect. Total Eclipse. This morph will heal you when the target casts a direct damage attack. Wow. Unstable Core. This morph adds area of effect damage when the effect ends. Okay. That's definitely improvements on that skill. We liked how this ability was acting as a soft crowd control, preventing some abilities but allowing others. However, the list of abilities was too short. We made the ability more universally effective. Yes, against the most offensive abilities, making the process to select the right target in time for the ability more important. Casting Eclipse when you have low health means the enemy may be able to ignore it and still kill your character. However, if you are able to stay alive, it can shift the tide of the battle in favor against you as against an aggressive opponent. Interesting. Okay, so now they made a useless skill useful. So that's good. Not useless, but you know, there were better skills to fit on your bar. Solar Barrage, Solar Flare Morph. This morph now has a cast time that matches the base ability and now causes you to pulse point blank area of effect damage every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. Interesting. Okay. Acid Spray, Aerospray Morph. Increase the damage over time of this morph by approximately 65%. Wow. Okay, so that goes in line with the new weapon. So increase damage with your Acid Spray, 50% more damage with your other bow abilities. Bringing bow builds back into the fray. I really hope they're nerfing Snipe though. Because Snipe is already hitting hard enough. It doesn't need to hit 50% harder. Combat fixes and improvements. Updated the information in the Dragonite Ardent Flame. Unrelenting Grip. Fiery Grip Morph. Fix an issue where this morph would not refund the ability cost if it failed to pull in a target. Okay. Draconic Power. Dark Talons. Fix an issue where rank 1 of this ability would allow the caster to use their own synergy. Alright. Path of Darkness. Fix an issue where some of the visual effects from this ability and its morphs were not aligned with the actual location of the path. Okay. Shadow Cloak. Fix an issue where casting this ability and its morphs was erroneously displaying the error text. You cannot cast this ability right now. Alright. Sorcerer, Daedric Tomb. Fix an issue where the placement of mines created by this morph are not aligned with your ground-based reticle. Okay. Mage's Fury. Fix an issue where multiple players cannot maintain the execute explosion debuff on the same target. Alright. Weapon. Two-handed, forceful. The damage dealt by this passive ability will no longer double dip in damage modifiers and will no longer critically strike. Okay, so this is a nerf to two-handed. That's probably a good thing. Stampede. Fix an issue where this morph could apply multiple snare debuffs whenever it was recast. Alright. That's a good change. Thriving Chaos. Lacerate Morph. Fix an issue where some of the visual effects of this morph were persisting longer than their actual duration. We also fix an issue where this morph was displaying incorrect icons on your buff trackers. Okay. Bow. Arrow Spray. We'll fix an issue where some of the visual effects of this ability and its morphs were not aligned with the actual location. Bombard. Arrow Spray Morph. Fix an issue where the name of the debuff icon applied by this morph was incorrect. Destruction Staff, Elemental Ring. Fix an issue where this morph was not causing alchemical poisons to proc. Okay, whatever. Shooting Star. Could be recast on dead enemies. Alright. Undaunted, the skill line now goes up to rank 10. Unlocking rank 10 of the skill line grants you the title Undaunted. This resolves an issue where some players could increase their Undaunted skill line rank beyond the intended maximum. Okay, so you don't get anything else for Undaunted 10. Continuous attack. The bonus applied by this passive ability is now removed when you leave Cyrodiil. Okay. Purge. Fix an issue where the buff applied by this ability and its morphs that reduce the duration of negative effects can stack. I didn't know that. Cool. The Atronach. Riposte. Updated this ability. This passive ability's tooltip to better indicate the proc condition. Item sets. There is a lot. The Master and Maelstrom unique enchantments have been rebuilt as item sets, with the new Asylum weapons following suit as an item set and not an enchantment. This means you can now safely enchant and re-enchant these weapons and still gain the special ability altering benefit. Due to the fact that these items can now be enchanted or poisoned normally, their extraneous stat bonuses have been removed. For example, Maelstrom's Greatsword no longer adds 189 weapon damage on top of the modifier to critical charge. The Master and Maelstrom one-handed shield item sets now require you to use both the one-handed weapon and shield together. Since the shield did not need to be paired with the one-handed weapon originally, a brand new shield will be mailed to you for each one-handed weapon you currently possess. It's also worth noting that you will still be able to backbar weapons such as Maelstrom Bow or Inferno Staff and still receive the bonus from them when their abilities are active. So they're getting rid of the weapon damage buff on the weapons. Okay, so due to the fact these items can now be enchanted or poisoned normally, their extraneous stat bonus have been removed. This means you can now safely enchant and re-enchant these weapons and still gain the special. Okay. So it sounds to me like they have a unique enchant, so the critical charge, and then you could enchant on top of it with a poison, shock, fire, weapon damage, whatever. It seems like it might be a buff, if that's how I'm reading it correctly. Because instead of having 189, you can have 300. If it's infused, you can have 500 weapon damage, basically up all the time. So it provides more burst, and so you can re-enchant over the top of it, and you will not lose your enchant, it seems like. That's good. Many of the Master and the Maelstrom item sets have undergone significant rebalancing. Wow, okay. Titanic Cleave. Increase the damage bonus to Cleave's direct damage to 2,000 from 688. That's actually pretty big. Puncturing Remedy. Master one-handed shield. Increase the heal amount from puncture to 2,500 from 2,150, and it now grants you spell and physical resistance equal to the amount healed for 3 seconds. Wow. Interesting. Stinging Slashes. Master dual wield. Increase the damage bonus to Twin Slashes bleed by 1,500 each tick from 516. That's a huge bonus to Master. Dual wield. Destructive Impact. Master Destro. Increase the damage bonus to destructive touches direct damage to 1,500 from 516. That's a big buff. Rampaging Slash. Maelstrom. One-handed shield. Your low slash will now cause your next fully charged heavy attack used within 5 seconds to restore an additional 2,000 magicka and stamina. Interesting. Precise regeneration. Increase the amount of magicka restored by regeneration critical heals to 800 from 481. Alright. Dragonstar and Maelstrom Arena will now drop weapons for their item sets in their final arenas in addition to their existing rewards. This means when you complete Dragonstar Arena, in addition to the rewards you already receive, you'll now receive a weapon from the Healer's Habit, Archer's Mind, Footman's Fortune, and Destruction Mastery item sets. Cool. Very cool. In Maelstrom Arena, you receive a weapon from the Elemental Succession, Glorious Defender, Hunt Leader, Parabellum, Permafrost, or Winterborn item sets. Okay, these weapons will be blue quality in normal mode, purple quality in veteran mode. Okay, so now you can get weapons for all these different sets. So you can get an Archer's Mind bow for gank builds, Sword and Shield for Footman's Fortune, Destruction Mastery Staff. Interesting. Itemization, fixes and improvements. Fix an issue where the reduction to spell and weapon damage applied by the weakening enchantment was being treated as a buff instead of a debuff. Okay. Item sets. Reduce the intensity and frequency of the visual effects and audio from the following item sets. Persistent bonus. Mighty Chudon and Slimecraw. Okay. Defiler. Who cares? Earthgore. Sala's Guile, fix an issue where the proc from this item set would aggro neutral monsters around you. Sword Singer, fix an issue where this item set bonus was not modifying the momentum skill. Interesting. Torg's Pact, fix an issue where this item set bonus is not applying the poison weapon enchantment. Viper's Sting, fix an issue where the damage for this item set's proc could be blocked. Okay. Art and animation. Animation, audio, combat and gameplay, monsters, crafting economy, crown store, yada yada yada. Housing, miscellaneous. Miscellaneous. In this update, we've been hard at work improving the performance of the client. We've overhauled how the client handles animations, significantly reducing memory requirements. Additionally, we made significant optimizations to the scene graph. Together, these two additions have resulted in significant gains in frame rate and improved load times into areas with many characters and or buildings. Made improvements to the overall frame rate, improved load times into areas with many characters and or buildings, fixed a number of infrequent game crashes. Awesome. We'll have to see how that incorporates, but those are good changes, of course. UI, Alliance War. Just reading, crafting, crown store, gameplay, guilds and guild stores, gamepad mode, housing. Alright, so that's the end of their opening thing. In general, I think those Asylum weapons are going to be very useful. I think the 2H and I think the Destro staff are going to be very valuable for PvE and PvP. There's just, that's too good. I think the retrading is good. Depending on how well they increase the load times and like sped up the memory, I think those are much needed changes. Mass Hysteria change is good. Just talking off the top of my head, Cauterize might actually be useful now. Healing Magicka DKs might be a thing, which is kind of cool. Very unique, very cool playstyle, you know. Provided more utility for Templars, that's good. The more utility you provide, the better. The more unique builds you're going to have. And so changing the Mass Hysteria, the other morph of Fear, to allow it to have its own utility and have its own place is good. You know, not everybody's running Mass Hysteria, now you have your options. Those are good changes. We'll have to see how this plays out. I am not on PTS. I can't tell you guys what these are actually going to do. As you guys all know, this is just the introductory patch notes. They're going to have more as I get them. I will read them out, but these all look like good changes. It all looks like exciting stuff. Some of the new armor sets look good. You know, get working on your PvE stuff. Get working on, you know, your trait research if you want to retrade an item. Cool stuff coming around the corner. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please provide it in the section below. Thank you guys. Have a nice day.